So, strategies for building relationships. I'm going to just go over a few things that I do that has helped me in the past. Starting with a question that I commonly ask my students. What is your favorite animal? And I ask them to give me the three reasons why. Now, I recognize that this is kind of a strange question, but I want to invite each of you to write down your answer and the three reasons why. We'll go over at the very end what that signifies, what that meaning is, and hopefully it's something you can use in helping you get to know your students as well. So, let's start with strategies for building relationships. Be available. So it's going to be very different. You're working from home. Remember to keep your personal office hours. And when you are there, be there and make sure your students know that you're there. One thing that helps me is sending out those mass texts saying, hey, I'm here right now. Do you need anything? And I'm going to show you a couple of tips and tricks on how to send mass notifications or text messages to your students. It's pretty easy, but I understand that it can be a little scary sometimes. So depending on what program you're using, I know that group messages are not the best option typically. And so I send one individually, but I send the same message to everyone. So it's just sort of a copy paste, sort of a thing. It takes about 2 hours, and I know it takes time, but it's honestly worth it because your students know you are there, you are present, that you are not someone who's just there every once in a while. They know your office hours. Expect to be tested. Your students are kind of going through something really tough. All of us are. And so with that, they're going to try and see what they can get away with and what they can't. So setting a firm foundation of what your expectations are is going to be huge in allowing them to continue forward in a relationship with you. Explore their motivation. Lots of teachers in my personal past have motivated me with fear of deadlines. And while that's really, very motivating for many people, when you're in an at-home environment, especially in the climate we're in, depression is a very common issue. And so if these guys are not constantly reminded why they're doing what they're doing, they forget and they never get on. And so constantly drawing back on their goals and asking them questions about the future that they want helps them to keep that at the forefront of their minds. Be patient. Computers can be tough to work with. We all go through glitches and we experience mechanical failures. And I don't know about you guys, but it's sometimes really hard for me to be patient with, glitches on my computer. Your students and parents are going to experience the same thing. So you may experience students and parents calling in and kind of giving you a rough time for it. Accept it. It happens to all of us. And then we can, build through and work through an alternate option. Okay, intentionally interact. Now, this is one that I really wanted to go over with you. I have a personal tracker for my students. This is what helps me to keep track of where they're at, each one. Now, naturally, I've changed the names of my students, but the interactions that I have recorded are actual interactions that I have experienced with my students. So if you see over here on the right-hand side, I have a color code. This is because that's just how my brain keeps track of things. So my yellow students are students I don't really need to worry about. They're working hard and responsive. Green ones, they need some pushing, but they'll do it. Blue ones, they need tutoring. They need extensions. They need really extra attention because they may not have the same resources as everybody else. Red ones, they are ones who never respond, who are never working, and they've just dropped off the face of the planet. And I know I have to do some stalking there. And then, of course, pink is unresponsive but working. There are plenty of students who they have social anxiety or they don't want to text all the time. Lots of people are better in person than they are online. And so those could be your students who are that way as well. So I wanted to go over and just focus on the contact that I have had with them. And I don't know if any of you have seen the movie, He's Just Not That Into You, but one of my favorite parts is when this girl is in an online relationship with a man who he sends her a beautiful voice message that is a song and it has her name in it. And oh, it's so romantic. But then afterwards, directly afterwards, the second message is the same song, but with a different girl's name. And he had confused who he had just called because he'd been calling multiple people. And so it really took away from that special connection that she felt with him. Now, granted, our situation is not at all the same thing, but when you are trying to get to know 200 different people online and you've never met them in person, it can be really hard to keep track of the conversations you've had with them. So, with their name or next to their name, I like to write down some key points of conversations we've had in the past and be able to draw from that when I give them a call. And this is an example I have right here. On the first, his mom lost her job, and so he's helping her out, but feeling really stressed. On the sixth, his grandma moved in and is helping them make ends meet. He's feeling really stressed, but likes to fix his motorcycle to relax. So we were able to connect and talk a little bit more about things that make him relax and motorcycles. And he was really able to open up, and he told me about, his dream of traveling across country, all that fun stuff. So that is something I highly recommend in order to help build your relationship with your students. Keep track of what they're talking about along with their general progress. So, Listen is a great tool to follow when you're making phone calls. Now, I mentioned texts and mass texts are helpful, but to really build a relationship, you have to have a phone call. If you could do a video chat, that's even better because it allows them to see you. But a phone call, it gives them that, feeling of that, there's someone really is there. So listen, empathize, repeat what they say, because in person you can maintain eye contact. Over the phone, it's all about repeating, and that is your way of saying I'm maintaining eye contact with you, I'm listening. Problem solve. Oftentimes I try to move problem solve from number 4 to number 2. Don't do that. Keep it at number 4 and follow the first 3 steps. It's a very common practice, and we all struggle with it, but that is key for me. And 5, of course, is follow up. Now, if you have your tracker, it's really going to help you to follow up. Now, making phone calls, and if you have 200 students you're trying to get through, I can usually make 200 phone calls in a week, but not in a day. And so if you have mass information that you need to send out to your students daily, then my suggestion is I have a canned text spreadsheet that I have open. And while I'm texting students or at the beginning of my day, I'll just take 2 hours and I'll send them each a text message with general information. So if you look here, I have different scenarios where I have to explain something. And it's a very common thing to have to explain, explaining online tutor options, setting up their emails, my schedule, general fixes for classes. All of these things I am constantly messaging about, and I don't have time to type it up 200 times. So I'll just copy and paste from this example sheet that I have. And I have announcements, I have things in Spanish for my Spanish parents, and encouragement, memes I send, gifts that I've sent, be stronger than your strongest excuse. All of these fun things are really helpful, and it makes it so then you don't have to retype it 200 times and send it over and over and over again. You could get it done in 2 hours and then get into the nitty gritty of calling your students or whatever else you need to do. Moving forward, let them get to know you. You are not a telemarketer. And that was one thing I really struggled with when I first started this, because I felt like a telemarketer having to make cold calls to all these students who I never actually meet in real life. It is so hard. And it's hard for them to build a relationship with you because you are, or you do seem like a telemarketer to them when you call, and constantly are hounding them for something. And so allowing them to get to know you is going to improve their interactions with you, and they'll be able to open up so much easier. With online schooling, you're not in person, so you have to know those details. My students know that they have to tell me if there's a death in the family, if they're going on vacation, if they're sick. everything, anything that keeps them from doing their work, they have to tell me. So I established that as a rule from the get go. And then I also plug in little things about me so then they feel like they can actually have a conversation with me and that I'm not a machine. I don't know if any of you have ever yelled at a telemarketer. I'm no saint, and I definitely have. And it's so much easier to yell at someone over the phone because one, you're not in person, and so it doesn't feel as personal. But I could never yell at someone over the phone if I know their parents' names or I know they love cheeseburgers and their favorite movie is The Princess Bride. The more you know about someone, the less likely you are to be rude to them. So what I do to help invite my students to get to know me is I set up a Instagram account. I posted at Audrey Grad Alley. You can feel free to follow that and get ideas of things that you can post to allow your students to get to know you and feel a little bit more in control of what's going on. And at home, just telling you what's happening. So here's a section or a text example. I'm only going to share one of them. It says, well, to give you some context, my students, I told them about a meetup that they had the day before, and they said, I'm not going, I'm going dirt biking instead, maybe tomorrow. And this was my reaction to what he had told me. I said, oh, I'm glad you got to go dirt biking yesterday. I would try that, but I think all my screaming and flailing from fear would make balancing 10 times harder. How do you overcome that? Oh, and also you mentioned planning to attend your meetup in 30 minutes. Is that still on? And because of this text, we were able to get into, something that he likes and connect on that. He was able to share a nugget of wisdom with me, as all of us are very anxious to share with people. We all love sharing wisdom that we have. So allowing him and inviting him to share some of his wisdom is going to get a better reaction from your students. And then, of course, following up on a commitment that he made, I was able to get him to attend that meetup. So those are just a few tips and tricks to help you out. And last but not least, I wanted to go over, back to letting them get to know you. My first question is actually part of a fun psychological study that 90% of the time is correct. So the theory is that your favorite animal represents how you feel other people see you. So if you had a chance to write it down or mentally think of your favorite animal and the 3 reasons why you like that animal, here is how you feel other people see you. So my answer was a swan. All of my students know my answer, as I know all of their answers as well. And the reasons are they are talented because they can walk, fly, and swim. Not all animals can do that. They are tall. They have tall necks. I'm tall. And 3, they start life ugly, but get prettier over time, which I've always found really fun and funny and pretty accurate to my life as well. So I hope that helps you out. Let me know if there's anything else I can do for you. Thank you.